Podcast with Tek and Prem.
It's the Vet Alumni Podcast. I'm Tek, he's Prem, and this is the draft aftermath show.
It is. And I liked what we did.
I did too. I don't know about you, I graded it as a B+.
I think that's pretty much where I would be too. Only because, I feel like he probably could have moved up and gotten Starks if he really wanted to. And that's who I honestly, at that point,
I was locked in. Yeah,
that's who I really wanted.
Yeah.
But, Jihad Campbell, you really can't argue with that
pick,
you cannot. Man. At 31, that's just remarkable.
There will be, we're going to be watching, just like we did with DK Metcalf when they took. We're going to be watching the careers of Andrew Makuba versus Xavier Watts. We're going to be watching how Xavier Watts, what he becomes in the NFL, because he was on the board when they took Andrew Makuba. Look, Jihad Campbell, beast at pick 31, pick 64. They draft safety Andrew Makuba from Texas.
Great pick. Heat-seeking missile.
He is. Look. He's a little on the smaller side. I get it, but and Xavier Watts was still on the board. But I believe Makuba. When I read his breakdown, his prospect breakdown, one line stood out to me. Literally the day before the draft, having breakfast with my dad, and that line was thrives in zone coverage. When I saw that, I thought that's a Vic guy right from the gate. He's a guy that, like CJ can be a playmaker, but won't have to play out of position to make the plays.
That's really the key. I mean, you want guys to be comfortable, but at the same time, you have a lot of versatile guys that can play out of position.
Yes.
Or play multiple positions, like Cooper DeJean, for example.
Yeah.
I have no doubt in my mind that if they really wanted to, they could put Coop on the outside, and he'd probably be great. Because he's an athletic, smart corner. When you're athletic and you're smart, that really gives you the edge, especially in the NFL. When you come in playing at a high level as a rookie, your second year, I feel like now he'd be able to do that. But you don't want to have to do that. You want to keep guys where they're most comfortable.
Absolutely. And I think, Breland Moore will join us.
Fox 29, we're excited to have Breland back on, and they've been gracious to us as well, having us on their show.
Absolutely, and she's the best, and we're making it a tradition to bring her on during the draft. Every draft, we're going to have Breland with us, and I'm very curious to hear where she thinks Makuba fits in. I happen to think he's a day one starter. I kind
of think so too.
As the GM, what the Eagles do, they're not drafting a safety in the second round to be a backup. That was my vibe when they picked him. It was like this guy is a day one starter, and I feel like they walked away in the first two rounds with two day one starters. Now they have the luxury of patience here. Jihad Campbell may not be ready at the start of the season. He may not necessarily redshirt the year, but he may redshirt for the first portion of the year.
I'm going to say it now, Tek. I'm going to say in a moment. I'm going to say it now. Jihad Campbell is going to have a huge playoff sack.
You think so?
Yeah, the key moment.
He could. He's a beast.
Huge playoff sack.
He's an absolute beast.
Divisional round at the link.
By the way, they are loaded at edge right now.
Yeah, you know what? And they're value guys, man, that are going to be playing on prove-it deals.
Yes.
I think Uche still has some left in the tank. I do.
Ojulari,
I think he has something left in the tank as well. These are young dudes. These are young dudes with a lot to prove, and now they're on a proven winner.
Yeah, and Bryce Huff, he's he costs too much to trade. He costs too much to cut. So he'll be here, and Vic's going to have to figure out ways to use him with a full off-season plan in place and really try to get him in the mix. And let's not forget, you got Nolan Smith, you got Jalix Hunt, and now you got Jihad Campbell. This is a deep edge spot on this team. They're just so happen to be deep there. And then you go to the defensive tackles. Now, before we get to the round 4 pick, in round 3, Howie got sniped, I believe, twice by the Raiders.
Raiders had a good draft.
They wanted a couple different offensive tackles. They wanted Caleb Rogers. They got sniped. They wanted Charles Grant. They got sniped both by the Raiders.
Grant was a nice grab. Right before us.
And I see what made this a B+ draft for me is I would have. There were corners on the board there. I would have pivoted in the third round and taken a corner. Howie decided to take his ball and go home in that third round, packed it in for the night.
I don't mind it, though.
I didn't mind it
because he got value after that.
Yes, he moved up in the fourth, and he was able to take defensive tackle Ty Robinson from Nebraska, a big guy, kind of a massive guy at pick 111. So that's a good pick. But then round 5, pick 145, corner Mac McWilliams from Central Florida.
Little bit of a reach, right? Little bit of a reach.
I didn't love this pick initially.
No, me neither.
And I still, this is the weakest pick of the draft for me. I could be wrong. Yeah, I want to be wrong here. I do.
I'm kind of on the same page with you. I was kind of surprised that they went that route. There were other corners on the board, I think, there that were graded higher.
Yes.
Other players that were graded higher, that overall better value, but I think Howie just wanted to make sure he got a corner because he hadn't picked one yet.
Absolutely.
And he wanted to keep that room young. You still have Eli Ricks in there, though, too, don't you? You still have Eli Ricks on the roster.
You still have Eli Ricks on the roster.
Kelly Ringo, Eli Ricks. I mean, these guys are going to get a chance, though. I don't think
Ricks is a pro-level player. He'll be in camp. But
he's a special teamer more than anything. But you never know, though. I mean, these guys could step up and play at a high level, too. Football is so funny like that. I mean,
true.
They got to be given the chance to see if they can play.
Yeah.
Because guys that we think can play sometimes can't, like Bryce Huff.
And
then vice versa. Guys that everyone thinks can't play, like Reed Blankenship, not drafted, can play.
Can play.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, man. It's almost like the hardest sport to predict as far as who can perform at the pro level.
Yeah, because you expect certain guys, and then they let you down, and then guys come out of nowhere, and they just,
I think back to Ryan Leaf.
Right. Yeah, everyone thought he was going to be Peyton Manning, and he wasn't.
It probably happens with quarterbacks more than anybody because they're
Definitely.
so hyped up.
Yes.
They're so they're the red carpet is rolled out for them so much more than any position.
Absolutely.
And then it's just like balloons emptied.
So we walked in with 8 picks, walked out with 10 guys, and Jihad Campbell is definitely a value pick, but if I exclude him, I see 5 true value picks, and round 5, pick 161 is quite frankly could be my personal pick to be the steal of this draft class and the first true value pick of this draft, and that is a linebacker, Smile Mondon Jr. from Georgia.
He had a third round grade.
Yes. He is a beast, and
That's a quiet pick right there.
I can't believe he was actually there after reviewing.
I know, man.
Because there's guys that were picked before him that are graded out as backups in the NFL, and he's viewed as a day one starter. You never have to take him off the field. He plays every snap.
Yeah.
He's an Iron Man player. He never comes off the field.
You know what that is for me? That's Nakobe Dean having injury history concern.
Yeah, you need an off-ball
That's
guy.
what that is, and he's also a Georgia guy.
Yeah.
Same system under Kirby Smart.
Yes.
I think that pick, when I saw that pick, I got excited.
Me too.
Because a couple of my homies that I talked to about the draft that are like way more educated than I am going into it.
Yes.
Knowing guys. My one friend, Jeff, in particular from high school, he always does his own draft guides, and they're really good.
Yeah.
He had Mondon, or is it Mondon or Mondone?
I think it's Mondon.
Okay. He had Mondon like third round grade, and it was at the top of his linebacker list.
All the experts had him as a third, at the very latest, a late third, early fourth round pick.
That's why Howie bopped out of the third round, maybe.
Yeah,
they might have prognosticated that
he might be there. He was falling. He might be there.
They have
round
so
5.
many guys in that room. You know, they probably all have a specific task on a certain player to track where they might go. They're probably prognosticating, all right, well, the next 15 picks probably go like this, or they go like that, and we're going to do this if this happens. I would love to be in that room and just hear the conversations.
Yes. And, you can tell this must have been a Vic guy. Vic really... and they love Georgia, but Vic is in that room.
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned being a Vic guy. Last week on our show for the clip I made, I started it with me saying this sentence: Vic has his hands all over these picks, and I thought to myself, that doesn't sound right. But Vic has his hands all over these guys.
Yeah, his footprints are all over this draft. When you look at all these defensive players. And then you go 7 picks later, pick 168 in the 5th round. Center guard Drew Kendall from Boston College. I saw this was an okay pick.
3-year starter.
And then I realized I realized that after the draft, he was listed when he was drafted. They announced him as center Drew Kendall.
Right.
And I thought, well, I guess we didn't have a good enough backup.
Like who's our backup center?
I get it.
Steen would double, right? Or is it?
Well, it was Landon Dickerson had to move over.
That's right. And then he was battling through an injury when he was.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
you don't want to have to move Dickerson.
But here's after the draft. I saw that he was really listed as a center guard. He is a true center that can play the guard position. Now, a lot of guys in this draft were guards that could play center, but there weren't a lot of true centers that could play guard. So this was a Stoutland pick. So immediately I'm like, okay, Drew Kendall. I'll take that. Center guard. You could never have too many offensive linemen for Stoutland U.
No, because it's almost like I look at it like Stoutland when he gets these guys. It's almost like a high percentage lottery.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
Throw it at the wall, see if it sticks type of situation. And really, 75% of the time, it will. Because they're evaluating them based on Stoutland's criteria.
Absolutely.
And he obviously knows something that like nobody else knows in the league. Or just his technique. He's almost like the Einstein of offensive line.
He is.
Basically.
I mean, he's unbelievable. He's
like the Stephen Hawking of linemen.
He can invent linemen.
Yeah.
He's just ridiculous that way. And then you go to round 6 now, pick 181, and here's another true value pick. Quarterback Kyle McCord from Syracuse. He set records at Syracuse. This is a really good quarterback.
I like his energy, too. Like I've seen videos of him in the locker room having a good time.
Yes, and he's a local kid, just like Campbell. He is a local kid you brought back.
Yeah, where's he from originally, specifically, McCord?
I thought it was South Jersey. I'm not sure.
It's always Jersey with these guys.
I know it is.
I mean, it's still Philly area. Local. Yeah, it's still like the Philly zone or Eagles fans. But I want to draft a guy from like West Philly. I want someone to play for Frankfurt High School.
Wasn't that like Hassan Reddick?
Well, DeAndre Swift.
Oh yeah, DeAndre Swift. Yeah, sure.
But yeah, Hassan Reddick Temple.
Hassan Reddick. Yeah.
I want like a Philly high school star.
I know. Well, they're listen. I don't know that we have an insane.
They're
in
Western PA and like Bucks County.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to hear Breland's opinion on this about who would be quarterback 3 week 1. I tend to think it could be Kyle McCord.
I got a feeling she's going to have some inside info there.
Yeah, because I just feel like,
she's in a locker room after every game. She's with the team. She's going to have something about it.
And who knows? I don't know if it's DTR that is the one that's moved, or Tanner McKee now. His trade value is going up. Who knows?
Yeah, Tanner McKee, we'll get to it.
When McCord got drafted, I thought, McKee. Yeah. McKee and McCord. I don't know. One of them's going to go. Can't have 2 of them.
Right.
And then here we go, round 6, pick 191. That's 10 picks later. Another true value pick here. Miles Hinton from Michigan. He's an offensive tackle. Another Stoutland U guy. This guy is massive.
He is a big boy.
He's like 6'6". He is a big guy. And, listen, his dad was a all-pro offensive lineman in the NFL. So this is like a DNA guy, a legacy guy, and who knows? This could be a value. Who knows? This could be a Stoutland guy that turns into something.
Yeah.
6th round, you never know. But hey, it's Stoutland.
Look, they got Mailata in the 7th round. And he is now one of the premier tackles in football.
He is the 3rd-ranked NFL player at any position according to PFF.
Wow, just in terms of like their metric for efficiency.
I believe is it Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson? It's one of those guys is number 1, and number 2 is Myles Garrett. Number 3 is Jordan Mailata.
Wow. Talk about value. That he goes down maybe behind Tom Brady and Brock Purdy is 2 of the biggest 7th round steals ever. Although Purdy, I guess that's kind of like insulting to Mailata and Brady to put Purdy in that conversation.
Yeah.
He's just an average system quarterback in my opinion. But still, 7th round pick.
Yeah.
Anytime you get a starting quarterback in the 7th round, it's impressive.
Any
starter of any type in the 7th round. Right out the jump, too.
And, okay, round 6, pick 207. The last true value pick. Another offensive tackle, Cam Williams from Texas. This guy was slated to be he left school a year early, and most experts say if this guy would have gone back for one more year, he would have ended up late first round, top of the second round next year.
Because of one more year in college. And
yes,
how
he
it shook out.
on most people's board, he was a top 125 player. He was top 125 in the country. So you
again, back to Stoutland. I mean, he has like what three new pieces then.
Yeah.
From this draft.
Yes, he
or
does.
Or is it 4?
He's got Cam Williams, Miles Hinton, and Drew Kendall. So he's got 3 pieces. In this draft.
One of them is going to end up contributing majorly over the next 5 seasons.
That's always how it goes.
It might probably 2 of them. 2 of 3 will pan out.
And just to put this out there, the guy they got in the CJGJ trade. I'm losing track of what his name is. They did not pick up his 5th-year option, so this will be just a one and done
1-year deal.
It's sort of like Mekhi Becton.
I like
if they
having
rehab
guys
him,
on
he'll get a deal.
The lineman. Green.
Yes, Green.
Something K Green.
Yeah, K Green.
Kendall Green, maybe.
I don't know. It's something like that. You're right about that.
But he was a high draft. He was a high draft pick, Green.
He was, and he was labeled a bust, and similar to Becton,
kind of like a Dillard situation.
Yeah, he's coming into Stoutland U. Hopefully, Stoutland can rehab him.
Either way, Steen is your opening day starting guard, and I think
it's looking that way.
It doesn't really bother me though. I think he'll be fine.
It doesn't bother me.
It's such a strong line. It's such a strong offense.
Played a lot last year.
He did.
We didn't even notice that he was in.
He came in the postseason a bit, I think. Too.
Yeah, he did. Out of necessity,
he had to, right?
Yep.
In that Packers game.
And then round 6, 2 picks later, pick 209 to end the day. Outside linebacker Antoine Powell Ryland from Virginia Tech. This guy, I wouldn't
That's
say...
a value pick, too.
Yes, I wouldn't label him a true value pick because it's kind of like taking a flyer on a guy that didn't get picked. But I'll say this. The guy had 16 sacks this past year and 10 sacks the year before.
I mean, that's... And playing in the SEC, Virginia Tech is SEC.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's played against big boy teams.
That's pretty impressive to steal a guy like that late. Look, I mean, it's almost like a Jalen Hunt situation.
He's a value pick, yes, but I view him more as a potential steal.
Well, he's going to be pushing Jalen Hunt, basically.
Yeah.
He might be 3rd on the depth chart there. But
he could be. He could be, but I just...
There's going to be some good competition in camp, man.
There is.
And in preseason games, I'm actually... when you're a Super Bowl champion, like the Eagles are, the fan base is excited about the preseason. Well, I can't wait to see these young guys play.
The difference with the preseason last season, and we saw it, play out throughout this season, which is why they had so much depth. Every year, our preseason sucks. Our second, third, fourth stringers, fifth stringers, guys who get cut from the team, are never as good as the Ravens or the Patriots or those other teams, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Right. Like, we're playing guys, and we're never as good. Last year, that wasn't the case. Last year, we had so much depth. Guys like Thomas Booker flashed and made the roster.
Yeah, Booker actually had contributed a bit in the regular season.
He did, and that's what you want to see. And this year, I'll be watching again in the preseason for that.
I'm watching for these quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's going to be big.
I want to see these quarterbacks play because, Jalen's going to play one series in a preseason. That's it.
Right.
And you're going to have, DTR and McCord battling for that last spot, and you'll see a lot of McKee. And I think as far as McKee, you mentioned him earlier, I think Howie potentially, after the preseason's over, if McKee has a really good preseason, the value will be the highest it'll possibly
be. Could move him, yeah.
And you go and get me a corner, man.
Yeah, I hear you.
I just feel like that's what could hold them back from winning the Super Bowl is having a corner on the outside like a Ringo, for example, who maybe he's going to be an average NFL starter, maybe, right? Say he's average NFL starter. That doesn't necessarily beat Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes again. We won last year in the Super Bowl because our lockdown, well, it was our pass rush, we know that, but when you have Slay and Quinion and Coop
I agree.
covering 3 receivers, now you only have 2 or 3 of those guys.
Right, I like Adoree Jackson. And
I forgot about Jackson. I'm sorry. I forgot about
Adoree Jackson. I'd like them to go and get a veteran safety.
Jackson might end up starting there, actually.
I think it'll be I think they signed him to be the starter. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
He is young. But still, though, it's unproven kind of in terms of being able to shut down the big-time offenses you're going to play in January.
Well, yeah, you're right.
If you want to beat, I don't think it's going to be Kansas City next year. I think it's finally going to be a Lamar or Josh Allen representing the AFC. I think next year, one of those guys finally gets over the hump. I always say Buffalo every year.
It could be the Ravens. They're coming in with one of the best safety duos, Kyle Hamilton and Malachi Starks.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a duo.
Because you know what? All these teams were drafting to beat the Eagles. You notice that? A lot of these teams were drafting to try to beat the Eagles, including our own division.
Yeah, I mean, our own division. The other teams were...
the Cowboys getting good corners.
I'll tell you this. Howie did a lot of top 30 meetings. And unlike last year, we think we know what Howie's going to do when he brings in these top 30 meetings. Not one top 30 meeting was drafted by the Eagles.
Which is kind of rare.
He didn't draft any guys that he met with. Which
he might have wanted to.
Which almost...
They didn't meet with Jihad because they didn't think he was going to be there.
Right. It almost signals... I don't think they met with Quinyon last year either. It almost signals that... It's kind of a smokescreen. They approach it differently, and then you see the Giants take a guy that was in our board. You saw the Commanders take a guy. You saw the Cowboys take a guy. So
they got some good corners.
They took
Cowboys.
Look, Cowboys had a decent draft. Giants had a decent draft.
But Dakota isn't a winner, so they're not going to win anything.
No, I don't think they win anything.
Dakota Fanning Prescott. that's what I call him.
Yeah. So, all right, let's address the real quick the undrafted free agent class.
Anything notable? Give me something notable, Tek. Give me the next Reed Blankenship.
Well, let's start with safeties then. Brandon Johnson from Oregon, who graded out pretty good, and safety Maxon Hook from Toledo.
You know, a
teammate of
safety.
Quinyon.
Right, I saw that, but a safety from the Pac-10 I kind of like because there's a lot of passing in the Pac-10.
Yeah. Exactly.
I like that.
A corner from Texas A&M, B.J. Mays. A linebacker, again, from Toledo, Lance Dixon, who, Quinyon teammate. They're looking at Toledo now.
Yeah, Toledo is kind of like a sneaky good college football team sometimes.
Yeah.
They're in the mix for they're like the Outback Bowl.
Now, they took an offensive tackle that is a massive human being. And they met with him, but it didn't count as a top 30 visit. It counted as a local visit. He went to Rutgers. He's a local guy. Holland Pierce. This guy is a massive guy. So they took him for Stoutland.
Sounds like a law firm.
Yeah, exactly. They took two wide receivers who are basically practice squad bait and guys that are not going to make the roster. But Darius Cooper from Tarleton State, never heard of that. And wide receiver Taylor Morin from Wake Forest. Listen, I don't know what these guys are. And then there's two interesting running backs here. One who everyone thought was going to be drafted, and another, I looked at the highlights, and this guy's a monster. The guy everybody thought was going to be drafted, running back Shanderick Powell.
Yeah, I've heard of Powell.
From Central Arkansas, kind of a beast. Everyone thought he was going to get drafted at some point. He did not. And then a running back that I'm impressed with from Florida. His tape is phenomenal. This guy's a beast. His name is Montrell Johnson. I can envision this guy.
I think he's going to push Shipley.
Well,
you got Dillon,
Shipley's
too.
A
You got to see what Dillon is. Push him for his spot in the depth chart.
Yeah,
because Dillon's your 2. He's a proven NFL running back. If he's healthy, he's your 2.
Oh yeah,
and Shipley's your 3. So they're trying to bring in some competition for that third back.
Yeah, and they need bodies for camp.
Yeah,
but
of course.
You're
going to have 90 players out there.
Yeah, I was shocked when I saw Montrell Johnson. I was texting back and forth with my dad. I'm like, how did this guy not get drafted?
I'll have to check it out. In Emmitt Smith's footsteps out of Florida.
And then there was some mini camp invites, couple receivers, Nasir Morgan Sr. from Delaware Valley, obviously a local kid. Wide receiver Ife Adeyi from Sam Houston State. I don't know anything about him. And then there's an interesting tight end. I looked him up, and I looked at some of his film, and he's a big guy, impressive too.
Yeah.
Tight end Malik Carr out of Houston. An interesting
Another team
invite.
with a history of a lot of passing.
Yeah.
Kevin Cobb, all-time passing leader for the University of Houston.
Then there's edge rusher Kamon Rucker from North Carolina, who is a name I was somewhat familiar with. He not only was he not a UDFA, he was a minicamp invite.
Some of these guys will be on the practice squad.
Some of them.
Obviously.
Linebacker Joseph Vaughn out of UCLA and cornerback Isaiah Green from Campbell. So these guys...
Question, though, Tek.
These are just bodies.
4th and 5th receivers. right now.
Well, right. I look at the fourth receiver.
You have Anaya Smith as the fourth.
I got Johnny Wilson as the fourth. I know people are down on him.
I would flip-flop him, but I got you.
But he's a big guy.
A couple big drops last year.
Yes, he did. But, look, maybe an off-season program. He comes in, he has a decent training camp.
So you think he's our fourth?
Maybe he could develop into the fourth. Now, my dad.
Anaya Smith
my dad, if you ask him, both of these guys stink, and they're not the fourth.
I think Anaya Smith has upside if he's given more of an opportunity.
Right now he's kind of a special teams guy, a return guy. He fumbled a couple returns. I don't know.
His college tape, it just goes back to what we were saying. His college tape was phenomenal.
A lot of these guys, they're great in college. They come to the league, and it's a big boy league.
It's so misleading because when you look at that tape, you got to realize that 90% of the guys that are playing in that tape are not going to have a football career past college.
They're not going to have a career now.
So it's so like that's why they hit with the SEC guys, because the highest percentage are coming out of the SEC, the Big 12, and the Big 10.
And look at the big picks.
Pac-10 now too. Pac-10 as well.
Our team is loaded with Alabama and Georgia guys. That's how you do it.
That's what you want.
You got to pick winners.
That's what you want, man.
And by the way, a lot of people criticized Howie after that Jalen Reagor trade. Just start picking guys from Alabama and start picking guys from Georgia and start picking guys from Michigan. Start picking guys from winning college.
Yeah, because it's a mentality. It's a mentality. Bring that winning mentality in, and look, now you got a Super Bowl ring because of that core.
You do. Yes.
Literally, this Super Bowl is 100% attributed to Howie Roseman.
It is. And
and his team of guys, there's quiet guys
and
around
Jeff Stoutland, those three.
Yeah.
It's funny because Nick Sirianni isn't even on the top of my list.
You know what though? He isn't appreciated enough though, because
I get it.
The guys really they have that family vibe, and you need that. You need a guy that can be the glue. He's the glue.
If I'm putting together a top 5 for why they won a Super Bowl, he would be 5.
You would go Howie.
I would go Howie, Vic, Stoutland.
You go Vic second.
I go Vic second.
See, I would go Howie.
Fangio transformed your entire defense, picked the right guys.
I would go Howie, then Jalen.
I go Jalen fourth because I look at it
and
like...
then Saquon would have to be fifth then.
You know what?
If we're mixing front office and coaches and players, it's tricky.
I have... You know what I have? I have like Hurts / Barkley.
Okay, that's fair.
As like
that's fair.
4.
All right.
And Sirianni 5. And basically, it's... I'm telling you, I go Howie and Vic because Vic saw something in Bond. He didn't see anything in Bryce Huff and quickly pivoted, and he just knew what to do. You can tell he had his fingerprints all over the draft last year. He has it this year. He is a voice. He educated Howie on the linebacker spot.
I love that Howie dropped that.
So Howie, Vic Fangio transformed this defense to the number 1 defense, and Jeff Stoutland, who continues to have this be one of the best, if not the best, offensive line in football year after year. So those are the 3 reasons why they really won this Super Bowl. And then you got to go Jalen Hurts and Saquon on the field for being the leaders that were able to win these games. And Nick Sirianni, 5th, because, look, he's not as big of a factor as the rest of them, but he's a locker room guy. The players love him. He identifies with them because he himself was a player, and he's a player's coach. He's young, so he's able to relate to these younger guys.
Some good wide receiver tape, Nick Sirianni.
Yeah. He does,
Love
actually.
It. Love
but,
it.
He's able to connect, and that's his big thing. He's not always great in these press conferences, but who cares?
It's like a big puzzle, jigsaw puzzle, and they just figured out what pieces they needed.
That's it.
I mean, it's a universal concept in any sport, but in football, it's more amplified in football because you only have 11 starters on offense, 11 starters on defense.
It is, yeah.
And
it's true.
It's not like baseball or basketball where you could have like one amazing player that can maybe win some games for you.
Right.
I mean, Saquon did that, but you have the offensive line in front of him.
Oh, yeah. Saquon single-handedly won 2 or 3 games easily for his team.
The L.A. game, the Rams game. Yeah. Both Rams games. Well, Jalen Carter, too. But
yeah, and was it the Ravens?
Yeah. Oh, that was a game where that was tough sledding. And
That was tough sledding.
they were up like significantly late.
Yeah, they were.
It was 24-12 at one point.
He just, he had a way of just running away with things, and we're not even going to discuss the White House nonsense. That's, it is what it is. We steer clear from politics. I just feel like,
it's just a tradition. You got to forget who's in the office. It's just a tradition.
It is a tradition.
That's it.
I'm all for it. And I didn't love the Saquon.
Hey, these guys are going to make. They're going to
Saquon
make their
should just
decisions.
gone. That's fine, but to go play golf with the guy and pal around with him, I didn't love that. But it is what it is. Like I said, it's not a political thing.
It's also a once-in-a-lifetime thing because you're talking about the leader of the free world. No matter what media is down on the guy or who doesn't like him for what reason.
No, you're right.
It's just the president of the United States, the biggest country in the world.
And
that's what's lost because of how divided everybody is
Absolutely.
now. It's
absolutely.
too amplified. We were kids, it wasn't like this.
No, it was not. I don't remember,
Even if you didn't have your party in the office, it wasn't like
George
this.
Bush, the people who voted for George Bush didn't wear shirts and hats. And they didn't do that. This is a whole new world of people who are just, it's so divided that no matter what this guy says or does, it's all good for them and it's all bad for the other side.
No matter what,
and it's divided.
It's entrenched.
So that's just the way it works. But this had, the Super Bowl winning team going to the White House is a tradition and it's not a political thing. But Jalen Hurts caught a lot of flack for not going. And, my thing is what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So for the people on the other side who are chastising him for not going and not being a leader, I feel the opposite. I feel like, well, listen, you guys cry freedom all day, but once somebody exercises their right to do something, all of a sudden they're not a leader.
I'll end this little. We don't usually do this. But
No.
I'll end it with this.
I didn't want to be political.
The people that are criticizing Saquon and pumping up the people that didn't go, the players that didn't go, I'm just going to make it very simple and very blunt. They just haven't read the proper books yet. I'm being honest with you, Tek. I've been studying this for a decade. I have a library more extensive I could ever dream.
I hear
what I know is not from stuff I saw on Newsmax or Fox News.
I know. That's all nonsense.
It's the psychological operations that have been going around this Trump guy for 8 years are because of the people he's going after behind the scenes that nobody knows even exist. And that's just the truth. I can give references to all this stuff, but it should never be mixed with football.
And also, listen, I'm not saying you're wrong about certain aspects of that, but, the guy is a polarizing figure for all the wrong reasons. And for either way you want to look at it, he's all right. So he might do one good thing, but he's doing 10 bad things that people hate him for. Now, I stay out of this, and I stopped watching the news. By the way, I can't take it, and I don't want to be. I don't want any part of it.
Yeah,
but
it's programming for a reason because it's programming minds a certain way.
It's all nonsense. I'm just not into it. But freedom. That's what we have here in this country that other countries don't necessarily have. Now, there's plenty of free countries
all over the world. Not in the same way, right. It's different.
It's different here.
Yeah.
And, when a guy or guys, plural, exercise their freedom to stand up for something that they happen to believe in, whether you believe they're wrong or not for believing in it, they believe strongly against this or believe strongly in this. And they exercise that freedom, and they get chastised for it. Listen.
Right, which is conversely why Trump got elected, because we exercised our freedom to vote, and more voted for that than didn't. It's the same thing.
I agree.
It's the same thing.
And if we were to get political, I'd tell you that Democrats did a whole lot wrong, especially the way they...
Word salad Kamala, you mean?
The way they ran, okay? The way they ran. And I am a Kamala voter. I love Kamala. But
they're saying right now she's still talking in word salad.
Well, she might be. She was the wrong candidate.
Big time.
And it wasn't even just her.
Do you want the inside scoop on why she got the nomination behind the scenes? When she was a prosecutor years ago in L.A. So,
we're getting political here now, people.
No, this is actually good stuff. Right. I read this in a book by a great writer named Lisa Pease, who actually is a Democrat. But she wrote this years ago about Robert F. Kennedy's murder. So Robert F. Kennedy, when he was murdered, a kid was put away named Sirhan Sirhan. He was not from the United States. That's who they pinned the crime on. And she writes a book about how it was an inside job. He didn't really pull the trigger, blah, 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 whatever. But in the book...
I always believe in the inside jobs, by the way.
Yeah, this is a great book. It's called A Lie Too Big to Fail by Lisa Pease, right?
I heard of that.
She
I heard
said,
about
yeah, you probably have. It's a great book. So she says in the book, she said, and a young prosecutor named Kamala Harris came to her desk to hear the appeal of this kid that's been in jail for killing RFK for years. And it was said to her behind closed doors, from a very good source, Lisa had this, if you deny this appeal and keep this kid in jail, we'll give you the White House. And this was years ago. There's inner workings here that go back.
I believe that.
They go back long, because it's like music too, right?
Yeah.
When you're in the right room with the right guy, I'm going to look out for you. That happens.
Oh,
so
that's the way it
take that
works.
concept and apply that to office, public
That's
office.
the way. You're
That's the
describing
world.
the way of the world.
Right.
Like the way
so
of the world.
we can leave it there, but I enjoy. We could have this convo a lot, because me and you, unlike most people, we could talk about this stuff and not get rude to each other.
No, and we're on complete opposite ends here.
We are.
People don't realize
Yeah,
it.
we are.
They
we
don't
are.
know that
Right.
we're on opposite ends.
I know. It's actually a pretty
You're that
cool
way,
thing.
I'm this way. They don't know that.
Yeah.
They do not know that.
It's very
But,
interesting.
Yes, because we don't. Listen.
It's not life and death for me and you being able to do
No,
what we do.
and you know why that is? And just being very honest, it never mattered in my entire lifetime, in our lifetime.
So why now?
Who the president of the United States was didn't affect my day to day.
Right.
So why now?
It's most of the time it's not going to.
Well, it affects
Yeah.
the stock market a little bit.
Hey, my
you know what?
portfolio's up 3 points.
The stock market will go down and
It'll
crash,
go up.
and guess what? It'll
gonna-
go back up.
Now's the time to buy. When it goes low, I just made some money the last month because I bought
Right.
low in a lot
Bought
of things.
low. A lot of people
They're
did.
bouncing back, and then you can
It'll always bounce back. Smart
and
people will
crypto
tell you.
is booming, dude.
Yeah.
The stuff he did for crypto, there's going to be young Americans because of what he did early in his administration for crypto, establishing a Bitcoin United States Reserve, making it official with the United States, doing it the right way. People that have invested are 25 years old in crypto.
Yeah.
They're going to be rich off of what he's doing right now.
I've
I've seen it. 10% jump in my portfolio, and I have small, modest. It's not a big portfolio,
Right.
But I've made a couple $100 the last month just because I made the right buys in March.
Yeah, I look at mine. I'm up. I'm down. I'm up. I'm down. You know, it's all about
It's
the day.
always been
But
that
it's
way, too.
That's the way it is.
Yeah, it's always
That
been
is
that way.
how it is.
You just got to get in and stay in.
Yep, you guys.
Period.
Exactly. And Democrats, 4 years from now, the topics that you run on, they have to be different. You have to run on what the American blue-collar worker wants to hear.
Let's not try to push men and women's sports. Let's not try to push Big Johnny being in the bathroom with little Shirley. Nobody wants that.
Let's not push abortion. Come on, guys.
Nobody wants any of that stuff.
And that
They
kills
were
it.
commandeered.
Yes, they were. All right. Listen.
We have a good vet fact here.
We have a very good vet fact. So brought to you by the Fairless Hills Academy of Music. It's time for Vet Fact.
Well, Tek, they
is a vet
say
fact.
some things never change, just like we were just talking about with the stock market, with who's president. Some things never change. The Dodgers are great right now. The Phillies are good, expecting to be in the playoffs. Well, guess what? On Friday, May 2nd, 1980, the LA Dodgers came to Veterans Stadium with a 13-7 record, and they were looking to knock off the Phils, but the Phils dropped a 4-burger in the bottom of the 8th in a 5-5 game to escape with the 9-5 victory.
Wow.
Schmitty and Lazinski both went yard, their 5th of the year in the early season. Maddox scores a run. Bake McBride drives in 3 runs. Dick Ruthven scores a run.
Woo.
Boa goes hitless, which is very rare. Boa actually started the season. He was only hitting .222. He was like the Trey Turner in 1980. .222
Right.
on May 2nd. Larry Boa. Trey has picked it up. But the point is, things stay the same as much as they change. Because on that day, you had a very nervous crowd as the Phillies actually were leading 3-0, blew the lead, and then all of a sudden they're trailing, and then they're tied 5-5. They did enough to get the victory. You had some great names on this Dodgers team, though. Steve Garvey on this Dodgers team had 2 RBIs. Dusty Baker with an RBI. Davey Lopes, former base coach for the Phils, had an RBI and 2 hits and a walk. He was hitting .282. Then you have guys I never heard of, like Rudy Law and Ron Say. Young Mike Scioscia was on this Dodgers team.
Yes, he was.
The Phillies actually beat pitcher Charlie Huff, who played till he was like 50 years old.
Yes, he did.
Charlie
Maybe
Huff
more.
caught the loss, but Rick Sutcliffe, a great pitcher in his day.
Tremendous.
Rick Sutcliffe actually took the loss. He had a 7 ERA, Rick Sutcliffe, after this game.
Wow.
Crazy. But pitcher Dick Ruthven for the Phils not only had a hit at the plate, he went 6 strong, only allowed 2 runs. Ron Reed actually blew the save and allowed 3 runs. But Dickie Knowles gets the solid inning of work. He walked 2, but he did enough in the 9th to get the victory for the Phils as they got the 9-5 win over the visiting Dodgers. They would see the Dodgers that year in the NLCS.
Yes,
and they would knock them off, and then they would knock off the Royals, and they would win it all. Tek, they were 8-9 after this game. The Phils, 8-9. 30,294 people attended. May 2nd, 1980, a game that took 2 hours and 31 minutes.
Wow.
Love it.
Staying on the Phils.
Briefly.
I see that the blinking light lets me know that we have to keep this brief.
Yes.
Breland Moore is coming up.
She is.
They're up and down. Prem, I know it's early. I know it's early.
Beating a dead horse here.
I know. It's beating a dead horse. It's almost
May,
like we should just skip this and then revisit it.
It's the part of baseball season that no one really likes, right? And I'll say it for both ways. Last year, we loved it. Phillies started out great, right? But what did that mean? They inevitably, because it's cyclical. Baseball, you cool off at the wrong time. And you go in there, you go into the playoffs cold.
Feels different this year, I said
last week, I'd rather start ho-hum, kind of okay, and heat up as the season goes on.
We'll see
and
if
I think
happens.
that's what's going to happen. Suarez
right.
coming back to the rotation. I think you're going to bump Taiwan to the bullpen, hopefully, is what they do. You need a right-hander.
They lost this Nationals game, and the third game. He didn't even have a bad start. I'll be honest.
No, he actually looked really good for 5 innings.
He did. That's all you want
but they weren't
out of him.
scoring any runs.
That's the problem, Prem. It's been the problem for a lot of these. Look, Aaron Nola only had 2 egregious starts where he lost you 2 games.
He gets no run support either, though.
Right. But outside of those 2 games, what did he 0-5 he started out or something like that?
Not all his fault, though.
Only 2 of those games he lost you. The other 3, he got 0. He only gave up 3-4 runs.
He should be 3-2. He should be 3-2, or at least 2-3, yeah.
And then he had the great game the other night.
But the hitting is gonna pick up, man. It's already kind of started. We saw it a bit in Chicago with the small ball. It's gonna pick up.
Small ball that they never do.
Bryce is gonna get hot. Bryce has been like
I'm waiting for that.
He's like the sleeping beast right now.
I'm waiting for Bryce to get out.
The wrong pitcher's gonna poke Bryce to bear.
He started off the year pretty good, and now he's kind of struggling. And I'm waiting to see him. And he had the critical error in this last Nationals game. But then, the Diamondbacks are in town this weekend. They got the City Connects going Friday night tonight. I'm
coming up on my first 2 Phils games of the year, Tek.
Are you?
Taking Mom on May 13th as
there
like a 2-day delayed Mother's Day present.
Oh, nice.
And I'm taking the wife on May 16th, that Friday. I'm going to 2 in the same week.
2 in the same week.
Yeah, I'm back.
I'm waiting.
I'm back.
I'm going for the fireworks special. I always go to the fireworks special. So that's
too many people, man.
I
only want to go when it's that crowded if it's the playoffs. Although I know the Friday night game I'm going to is probably going to be ridiculous.
It's going to be ridiculous.
It's City Connect night. We got great seats, man.
There it is.
I'll only buy great seats now.
Me too.
Because you're only going to go to 5 to 10 games a year. Well, for me, 5 to 10 a year.
Yeah, I'm going to like 2, and every time I go, those 2 games. It's going to be great seats.
We sat in good spot last year.
Great spot.
I had never sat there.
And then I went to another game and sat in those same seats.
Yeah, 137, 138.
Yeah, it was a great section.
It's a great angle.
I hadn't been in that angle for a long time. I was more used to the first base line.
Yeah.
And sitting in that third base line, I really, that's a good spot.
Maybe we'll plan another time and take the ladies again.
We should.
Season. Yeah.
We should. I was going to say, because my lady is actually visiting her family for the month.
That's right.
So I'm like, I was going to ask if you wanted to see again, but we'll see.
I'm down.
See.
I'm down. Yeah, I'm down.
Maybe we'll go see one in the next
we'll look
few
at
weeks.
The schedule. Sounds
Might be
good.
going to 3 in May if we do.
Look at that. Look at that.
All right. And you got picks coming up, don't you?
I do. I bounced back last week.
Yeah, so, all right. So, Breland Moore, let's hit the vet line with our girl, Breland Moore, next.
Vet Alumni. And now, it's the Vet Line.
Why don't you answer your phone?
Joined now on the vet line by Breland Moore of Fox 29. Coming back on the show again, Tek. We love having her on. Talk some birds, talk some Phils. Bree, thanks for joining us.
Hey, guys. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah, well, we're excited about a lot of things, specifically Howie Roseman, in my opinion, doing really well in what I think is a fifth straight draft. It would be.
Yeah.
Obviously, you got to take the field and see what these guys can do. But I feel like they got great value with Jihad in the first pick, and then Makuba filling that safety slot. What are your thoughts on these guys being able? Well, I know Jihad has the injury, but say Makuba, for example. What are your thoughts on him stepping in and taking over the starting safety role right out the jump?
I don't think that's going to happen. I think Sidney Brown is the pick with Reed Blankenship.
Yeah.
Now, we'll obviously see what happens, during this offseason period. The rookie minicamp is beginning, and then, of course, we'll have OTAs, and then training camp is when the real issue will arise, and we'll start to see the depth chart shake out. But I think they wouldn't have let go of CJ Gardner-Johnson if they didn't have faith in Sidney Brown, and Sid had been poised there anyway pre-injury to really kind of start taking some reps there. So I actually think Sidney Brown will be the starter alongside Reed Blankenship, and Makuba will be that depth guy, that person who will kind of be learning under both of them. And I think it's a great get. It's a great replacement for that CJ Gardner-Johnson role. And like I said, I think, if something does go awry, we're still waiting for Sid to work his way back from injury. So if something does go off the rails with that, that will be a great step in. I love the Jihad pick.
Yeah, me too.
I really did. And I knew it the second. I was actually a sicko, guys, on the cruise that I was on. I was sitting in the sports bar the day of the draft and just watching and waiting, and 31 rolls around, and all of a sudden we get ourselves a trade here. And I knew that Howie saw someone still left on the board that he wasn't going to let slip away to Kansas City or even in round 2. And I loved that pick. I think he's a great all around player. I heard Howie say, someone asked him, do you see this guy as more of an edge that can play linebacker or a linebacker that can play edge? And Howie just responded, yes.
Yeah. He's a pass rusher in high school.
I absolutely love that, the versatility. And I think that'll be a really great addition. But overall, I was really impressed with the draft. And I think the nice thing is, guys, and maybe you don't look at it this way, because I saw a lot of criticism towards the draft and some of the moves and stuff like that. And I'm sitting here thinking, maybe it's just because I was on vacation and in vacation mode, but I'm like, guys, the Birds just won the Super Bowl, right?
I know.
But this is Philadelphia, Bree. This is Philadelphia. You know how we are here. There's always going to be criticism.
Yeah.
Right. And I really do think that the pieces that they lost are not irreplaceable either.
No.
I mean, everyone's talking about some of these pieces that they've lost. Since when is Milton Williams comparable to a
top flight tackle? He's not a top flight guy.
Right, absolutely. And it's one of those
Aaron
things
Donald.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. It's like these people are on Twitter panicking over some of these losses, like Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, and Saquon just all packed their bags. This is not what is going on here, guys. And so I think the draft really kind of did a great job of providing that depth that I think that we needed to see, because this team, unlike any others, really, I mean, there are a few here and there, but this team is really, really built from the draft. And there are very few free agent splashes, obviously Saquon and AJ being acquired and not drafted. But beyond that, I mean, most of these guys that you see have been developed in the system, and that's what works for them. And so I really liked the rounding out that I saw in this 2025 selection.
Me too. And speaking to your point, Ty Robinson was another good pick, I think, because I think he has the ceiling to be a Milton Williams style of player. I've heard really good things from people who scouted him.
He's big. He's a big guy.
Yeah, he's a big guy for sure. And you're right. They're loaded. They grow the players through the draft more than free agency, and that's really why they're set up for success with a Super Bowl window here. If you could pick one more move for Howie to make before Week 1 on a wish list, what would that be from your perspective?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I have one. I'll hear yours first and tell you what I think, but I want to hear what you would have to say about that.
Are we gonna? I feel bad, right? Because he had some injuries and things like that. I would like to see him load Bryce Huff, but
yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
I don't know if that's going to happen.
No.
And I do think, the contract is too big, and because of the issue, that he had, I understand that they're willing to give him another shot. But I think that's the glaring little issue that we have going into this. And if anything could be done, but I don't think that that's even remotely possible. But that if I could pick, that would be my one, is to get rid of that and figure that position out. What about you guys?
That's reasonable. See, for me, and I don't dislike Keely Ringo. I think he deserves a chance like all these other young guys have had. But if you could go out, if Howie could go and take a couple of these future picks he's amassed, whether it's third, fourth, or fifth round, maybe a player or two, and go get me like a Pro Bowl caliber corner to play opposite of Quinyon. You put a Slay type of corner back across from Quinyon now, and you can leave Coop in his spot he's supposed to be. Then you're talking about Super Bowl again, in my opinion, with no doubt about it. I feel like that's the one spot that I'm not sure of.
I'll tell you mine.
Yeah, what you got?
It's very similar.
Okay.
Veteran safety. I would love for Howie to go and get a veteran safety. I'm not all the way in on Sidney Brown.
Me neither.
And I like this Makuba kid, but he's a rookie. And Justin Simmons may be a little too out of the price range. He might want, Howie would probably want 2 years, and one of those years being a dummy year, so it's essentially a 1 year deal.
Right.
And I don't think Justin Simmons is going to be satisfied with that kind of a deal. So I don't know. I would
like a trade for a good safety.
You could either sign like a Julian Blackmon or because he's 26 years old, he fits the right age range. Or you could trade maybe a Buda Baker, somebody like
Buda
that.
Baker on this team would be
That's what I'm saying. So
I like it, yeah.
I would say safety. You say corner.
We're all defensive side,
We're all
though.
defensive side. Yeah, because there's nothing offensively. What can you touch?
I know.
They're the same offense.
Well, they might say people that are I don't understand, and Bree, tell me what you think on this. I don't understand the whole Dallas Goedert has to go thing. I don't get that. I don't understand it personally.
I don't really understand it either. I am in the camp that if Dallas Goedert goes, personally, I would be sad because I like him as a human being.
Yeah, of course.
But I wouldn't be upset from a, X's and O's standpoint. I think he is very much a negotiable trade piece here. That being said, and he has shown he's replaceable, unfortunately, because the amount of injuries he's had, and I mean, nothing against Goddard, but Grant Calcaterra really did step up in that position.
He did.
Big time.
And really next man up mentality, embraced that entire situation there. So, I mean, unfortunately for Goddard, though, when Calcaterra shows he's replaceable, he becomes very much a trade piece. And the fact that he just can't stay healthy, which is no fault of his own, but I still think that Dallas provides value here. And if they move him, fine. If they don't, also fine in my book. I think either way, this offense is incredibly high-powered and it really has very few flaws. And I think people have to fixate on something,
That's
right?
true.
They have to talk about something.
I would say this, though.
Unfortunately, Dallas got it. Yeah.
You could argue that they might not beat Green Bay in that first playoff game without Dallas Goedert.
That was a rude play.
He was phenomenal, and then that touchdown was a grown man's touchdown.
Rude. Love
I
it.
absolutely would agree with you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
man.
I
really
don't want to
just
see
think
him
that's
go.
the case. Yeah, I don't either. But I mean, like I said, if they did decide to move him, I wouldn't be too upset, and I would understand it. But I would prefer him to very much stay here.
Yeah, Calcaterra has really good hands too. I mean, that guy has like glue on his hands.
Yeah,
he's
a good receiver.
I really love how Grant has progressed, and that tight end room. What was that? 2 years ago when it was Stoll was in the mix there as well, which he was kind of in and out last year too.
Yeah.
But those three really, had a great bond, and I think Dallas and Calcaterra being able to work together for another year, the strides that Grant took last year were incredible. Yeah.
Comfortability, just comfortability with Jalen too. Jalen knows him, and
Absolutely.
it's important. It's important.
Absolutely.
I now back to the draft. I thought they might take like a Mason Taylor actually at one point.
Yeah, me too. Once all the tight ends were off the board, though, I said, you know what? Something's up the sleeve. They're going to do something.
They went quick too.
They got an undrafted guy who looks kind of like a beast, but he's an undrafted guy, so we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Hey, you know what? Reed Blankenship was undrafted.
That's true.
Yes.
Super Bowl champion.
Do you guys remember when we first started the Fantastic Sports Show and everyone told me that I was insane because I thought Reed Blankenship was a good player? And now look, he's a Super Bowl champ. And
You were
he's
right.
like part of everyone's favorite duo back there. So
And anytime there's a late game interception, it's always him.
He's got
Always
instincts,
Reed.
man. He has like that when you played ball as a kid, like in the alley or in the street with your friends when you're like 10 years old. We all did growing up in Philly. He has like that type of instinct. He plays ball like with that childlike mentality, not in a bad way, like a fearless, I'm going to go get it type of way.
Yeah.
I completely understand what you're saying. So, you can always find those diamonds in the rough there. But overall, I think I'm really excited. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe here and there we see a few more pickups, this and that and the other thing. But I am really, really excited to see how this team shapes up in the next couple of weeks between rookie mini camp and OTAs and, of course, during training camp. And I think it's going to be really interesting. But I think people really need to chill out when it comes to the draft analysis because, they are Super Bowl champions and retained the bulk of their talent.
Right.
True.
There's really no need to be firing off some of the think pieces that I have seen over the past
I
few
know.
days.
It's like you said, that they just have to have something to labor over almost.
It's paralysis by analysis.
Yes.
They see this and they harp on it. Revisiting the draft class one more time, we came in with 8 picks, left with 10 guys. At least half of the picks I have listed as true value picks.
Yeah.
Meaning maybe that wasn't the position of need there, but they were the best on the board at that spot, according to the 2 position coaches that were really dictating all the players drafted here. Out of these 10 guys, who do you see 3-4 years down the line could be the steal of the draft?
Ooh, that's a great question. And I think it's, obviously it's hard to predict, but I think, honestly, if you're looking at a steal, I would have to obviously go with Stoutland University, right?
Yeah.
Jeff was all in that. And the fact that you've got a center and 2 offensive tackles there in the 5th round and the 6th rounds, respectively, I think those players will end up, really being developed because there's no better place for them to be developed than Stoutland U. However, guys, I do want to point out, and I want to get your opinions on this, the 6th round quarterback draft, Kyle McCord.
Mm-hmm.
How stinking cool is it for that kid?
It is very cool. And
Wow.
my prediction, he will be quarterback 3 on week 1.
I think so. Yeah. Emergency QB.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I definitely think that. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I think Tanner has some trade value.
Tanner does have trade value.
When they drafted McCord, that was my first thought is, they might be trying to move McKee.
Well, I don't think you can do that.
Well.
I think you got, because you let Pickett go, you have to keep McKee, in my opinion.
Maybe.
I mean, look, he can come in the playoffs, in my opinion, and maybe even get a win if Jalen, God forbid, goes down. I don't believe that with McCord, though, yet.
I hear you.
I'm thinking December, January ball. You'd want McKee coming in at this point.
Yeah,
Well,
I hear you.
You never are quite sure because keep in mind, Jalen and DTR do have a relationship that dates back a couple of years ago. They are actually my favorite part. We actually DTR on the Fantastic Sports Show, and he told us that he and Jalen are chess partners.
That's pretty cool.
And they have a really awesome relationship, and that spans a couple of years. And so there is a workability there as well. And I think he might surprise a lot of folks. We'll see.
Yeah, McCord might be practice squatted then.
He'll get plucked.
Realistically, I think they'll keep the 3 and then keep McCord, kind of in the wings, maybe like that as well. But you never know. If Howie, if he can get a good deal for Tanner, Tanner's gone.
Yeah, hey, maybe that's something. Maybe that's a way to fetch a corner, like I was saying. I mean, you never, or a nice piece on the defense.
Maybe a team that didn't get the quarterback that they thought they were going to get in this draft
Correct.
process. Maybe they are willing to give up a 2 for McKee.
Yeah, you see, if I was Howie, I would have kept Pickett and probably traded McKee. Is how I would have probably. I feel like McKee might have had more, even though Pickett has starter history and he's performed. I feel like people might view McKee as a better prospect at this point.
Higher ceiling, yeah.
Yeah, he's a true quarterback.
He is.
Definitely.
Well, you never know what Howie's mastermind plans are. So
I know.
Maybe
I know. The
there's
wizard.
some more wheeling and dealing in the future. Who knows?
Yeah, we're so blessed to have a GM like this, You're always contending. He always has some kind of finagling he can do with the salary cap. Or now everybody else has the same rules to work within. Why don't they do it?
I don't know. They're just not good enough. He's the man.
I think when you have, and this is such a testament to Howie Roseman, when your team has been in contention like this over and over and over again, that's not a coach. That's not the players on the field. That is your front office. That's your scouts. That's your general manager drafting well and building well and making moves, smart moves, that even when you lose players after the Super Bowls that you're in, you're right back in the conversation. Either the very next year or within, a couple of years. And I think Howie Roseman and Brett Veach from the Kansas City Chiefs are two of the finest at their jobs. And I'm not, saying that just to hat tip my former market there, but I really do think some of the moves that both of these teams have been able to pull off and continuously stay competitive in a league where the parity is so great is really, really, really incredible, and just a testament to how good Howie is at his job. And so, like I said, I think the think pieces need to stop and just let this man cook.
Yes.
Everything will be good.
I agree with you.
Absolutely.
Speaking of letting a man cook, Dombrowski, let's switch over to the Fightins.
I was thinking you might go Fightins now.
To me, he is just. I wish Howie could run the Phillies too, to be honest, and the Sixers. If Howie could run all these teams, it would be so much better.
The Sixers especially, man.
Especially the Sixers.
Dumpster fire, man.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, we can't even... Let's go Phils. Let's not talk basketball.
So the Phils have been up and down. I mean, same record comparable to the last 2 times they won a World Series.
There you go, dropping my tidbit. I like it. I like it.
With that being said, we know that. Does it feel different to you? Does this feel like a team that's going to make a World Series run to you? I know how you feel, Prem. I know how Prem feels.
I'm going to be so honest with you guys. I don't know, and I don't care.
Wow.
I think because here's the thing. Season is so long, and it is literally May 1st.
That's what I'm saying.
I know.
First, and everyone is trying to pinpoint whether or not this team is going to be a World Series contender. There could be injuries, catastrophic injuries. Knock on wood that doesn't happen.
Right.
There could be trades. There's so many things that can happen down the line in the course of a couple of months. This is not football where, the first couple weeks of the season, you can really start to see who the heavy hitters potentially
sound like
are
me,
going
Bree.
to be.
You sound like me.
Yeah, but do you trust Dombrowski?
Games.
Do you trust Dombrowski to make a trade for a big time player at the deadline? I just don't trust him.
I think he knows he has to now. I think he knows he has to. It's this group's
It's not
last
all
chance.
on him, by the way. It's on Middleton.
Yes,
when Middleton says, "Well, you can only get a $12 million guy for the outfield," well, then you're only going to get Austin Hayes or a Max Kepler. You're only going to get that level of guy for $12 million. So a lot of this is on Middleton. It's not necessarily all Dombrowski's fault. It's
right.
I haven't loved who he's identified since he's been here at the deadline, and I just don't trust him this year to make that kind of a must make move.
So Bree, I'll humor Tek here for his sake, and I'll ask you, who have you been most disappointed with?
Ooh.
Yeah, I think we'll all share who we've been most disappointed with.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay. Well, we can't really be picking on him because he's not playing at the moment. But I really think Brandon Marsh and the the artist formerly known as the daycare, right?
Yeah.
Alec Bohm as well.
Yeah.
I think
That's my guy. Alec Bohm, I'm disappointed in.
Okay.
So you
Yeah,
pick Marsh,
especially-
I pick Bohm, yeah.
Alec Bohm, this is a prove-it year, especially after the offseason he had where the trade rumors were swirling and, the attitude was a little questionable from him towards the latter half of the year. And honestly, the first portions of this year as well. It's that the daycare is not stock. I don't want to
hitting almost 300. Hitting almost 300.
Yeah, I'm not
I get
including him, but those two I think are the ones that I'm like, man, come on, we expected great things from you guys, and they're just not necessarily delivering. But hey, you
also
cannot
disappointed
be
Trey Turner,
slandering. I will. Oh yeah, Trey Turner too.
He's
you're
hitting like
making too much money.
295 now.
Yeah, but and this has kind of been a trend for him since his.
I gotta say Orion Kerkering, and I say that because
I don't think he's coming around.
This year was supposed to be like this kid takes a big step forward.
He's a bum. He's a
think
middle.
so?
He's a middle relief guy. You can't bring
I
him
wouldn't go
in
that far.
when it matters the most. If you bring him in a high leverage situation, he ain't it. And Rob Thompson keeps on doing it.
But so
keeps
far, I've been
on using
disappointed.
him in high leverage spots.
I think he's going to heat up a little bit too. It's cyclical. Baseball is so cyclical. They could go through these. They're all going to go through these hot streaks and cold streaks. But I feel like so far, Kerkering has been responsible for 2 losses solely.
Yeah.
This should be like a 19-11 team right now.
I hear you.
But instead, you're 17-13, looking at a potential. Losing a third game to the Nationals. By the time this comes out, they may have lost it.
They're losing it.
You still want. See,
It's a
Bree,
loss.
so Bree, Tech in a 2-run game, no matter what point in the game it is,
The offense
it's a loss.
stinks. The offense stinks. I just, maybe they have one of those games in the bottom of the 10th or something, or the bottom of the 9th. But I just, I doubt it. I don't know.
As he rocks his throwback Schmitty jersey, Breland.
Throwback Schmitty.
I love it, guys.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I also do agree. There has to be more than just living and dying by the home run, right?
Right.
And that's been a consistent trend throughout the course of the past couple of seasons, where it's a live and die. Either you start out with a 3-run shore bomb, or you barely get yourselves on the board. And we've seen that kind of start to play out again, where it's like all or nothing. And so I definitely think it's not one issue. It's multiple things going on. So we'll see if they can figure it out, because guys, what is it?
It's a long
the
season.
Beginning of May.
It's a long season.
It's
now, I
May.
will say they did win the series in Chicago because they played small ball. That's why they won that
Right.
series.
But by the way, funny you bring that up. That was one of the first times I've actually seen them play small ball like
They can
that.
be
Why
so
can't they
good.
do
Yeah,
that
well,
consistently?
they have been. I know. You said Trey, but Trey is hitting like 500 over his last 27 at bats. 500.
I
The
hear
guy
you.
has been tearing the cover off.
He had
the
a
ball.
great game the other day. What did he go 5 for 5 or 4
Something
for
like
5,
that.
something
Yeah,
like
but
that.
in the field
Yeah.
though, he's got too many errors.
He's horrendous.
Are you, Bree? Are you a proponent of potentially just making Trey your center fielder and moving Sosa to shortstop?
I moved Trey to DH.
No. Then you got
do.
Schwarber in the field.
Really?
I don't
No.
think Schwarber will be back after. I'm talking about next year.
Oh, I'm talking about right
oh.
now.
There's nothing you can do. He's your shortstop this year. The Phillies
Yeah.
don't do
Yeah.
that. Once the
And he
season's
doesn't-
rolling, they don't make position changes.
Correct. And I think he's been pretty clear that he's not willing to do that either.
Yeah.
So-
Just curious what you
Yeah.
thought there.
But after this season, he's the DH. Schwarber's got, I think he'll be gone. He rejected their $66 million or whatever it is. He's gone. He won't be here. Real Muto won't be here. Castellanos won't be here. Kepler won't be here. You'll relieve $80+ million off the books, and it'll be time to start retooling this team around Bryce and Trey.
It's
really.
the last go for this group, really.
Yeah, it's got to be.
So, Bree,
Yeah.
look into your crystal ball before we let you go.
Okay.
First with the Birds, give me even though we don't have the schedule yet, we know who they're going to be playing. Give me your record for the Birds, and give me what playoff spot do the Phillies land in?
Oh man. Okay. So for the Phils, that's easy. I've been saying, they're going wild card.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I very much prefer them to be in a wild
too.
card.
Yeah,
position.
I agree. I agree with that. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it was great to see them win the division, but everybody knows what happened. We don't need that anymore. Wild card. So definitely I want them in a wild card spot for sure. As for the Birds, we'll see how it goes. I want to say, I've been saying 13 wins, but we'll see how things go. I want to see the schedule. I want to see how things, and it comes out pretty soon, right?
It does. May 14th or 15th, I think.
Yeah.
Something like
So
that.
I think once we are able to see if there's any gauntlets, if there's any traps, all of that good stuff, I'll have a better prediction. But I think 13 is fair. And we'll go from there once we actually get the list in front of us and see. When do you have to play Buffalo in Buffalo?
That's,
you know what I mean?
That's exactly.
That's a tough one.
All of that stuff. Yeah.
That's
So
one.
I'll go 13 very early on, and then we'll go from there.
I like it.
I love it.
For the VetLine, we've had Breland Moore from Fox 29. Make sure you tune in to the Fantastic Sports Show. Weeknights, 11:30 p.m. You might catch myself or Tek on the air as well.
You never know.
We love the show.
You guys are great.
We appreciate being involved. We love having you on our show as well. And hopefully the next time we catch up, we're talking about some really positive Phil's talk. And the birds getting ready for another Super Bowl run.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, guys. Always fun.
It's time for Prem's Picks.
These games are a blowout, a human lock. You can bet your children's unborn children on these games.
It's Prem's MLB Picks. Where we at, Prem?
Bounced back last week, 2-1.
All right.
Had the Brewers with the W, the A's. We were just talking about the old Philly A's with the W. And the Blue Jays, they actually got swept in a doubleheader by the Yankees. I thought they split. So I'm 6-3 after 3 pick rounds. And here are this week's locks. So the Orioles, with high expectations going into the season this year, obviously very good, talented young core. They're hosting the Kansas City Royals, who have been really hot. They've won 9 of the last 10 games. And, the Orioles have been touch and go. But tonight, at Camden Yards, I think the Orioles are going to knock off the red-hot Royals.
Okay.
This is a battle of the two clubs that the Phillies played in the World Series in 80 and 83 as well.
Wow.
At the Vet. So I say this because the Orioles against Royal starter Michael Wacha, listen to some of these numbers, Tek. Ryan Mountcastle, 22 at-bats, a .455 average, and 3 bombs. Cedric Mullins, 23 at-bats, a .391 average with 2 bombs. Just absolutely, they victimized Michael Wacha.
Yeah.
Urias, 16 at-bats, a .313 batting average. On the flip side, against Orioles starter Kramer, who has not really been great out to shoot, only a couple guys on the Royals side really have good numbers. Witt Jr. obviously has good numbers against them. I don't think it matters, though. I think on this Friday night at Camden Yards, the Orioles, who had high expectations and now sitting at 12-18, feel the desperation and get the win for the home crowd. That's the 7:05 first pitch tonight, Tek, and that's a lock. I'm staying in the AL East. The Yankees hosting division rival Tampa Bay in the Bronx. And I think that most people would say, the Yankees are easily going to win. I think they do win the game. I think the Yankees win the game with Max Fried on the mound, but the Rays are going to keep it close. I think it's really tight. But Max Fried on the mound in the Bronx, 5-0 with a 1.19. Mm-hmm. This is a game that I think the Yankees, they kind of stumble out the blocks a little bit with the bats, but they get a big home run late. I think Fried might actually give up a couple hits that he wouldn't normally give up. But at the same time, it is in the Bronx, it is the Yankees, and I think that that's a lock. Last pick of the week, we're going over to the National League, Tek. The Dodgers visiting Atlanta to face the underachieving Atlanta Braves. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And one Yamamoto, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and his 1.06 ERA.
Oh, yeah.
With 43 strikeouts in 34 innings. going up against the Atlanta lineup, which, really has left a lot to be desired.
Yep.
They just got beat 2-1 by the Rockies out in Colorado. They're coming back from a West Coast trip. And meanwhile, the Dodgers going west to east. That's usually tough, but I don't think it matters. I think that they get the win. Teoscar Hernandez has gone yard off of Atlanta starter Holmes. Michael Conforto, 3 for 3 off of him. And I think that this is going to be a night where the Dodgers look like the Dodgers.
Yep.
And they get the win against the desperate Atlanta team. And that's a 7:15 first pitch, and that's a lock.
Lock.
So to recap, Tech, we got the Orioles over the Royals in Baltimore.
Lock.
The Yankees over the Rays in the Bronx.
Lock.
And the Dodgers over the Braves in the A.
Lock.
This has been the 4th edition of Prem's MLB Picks.
And with that, we will see you next week.
Vet Alumni.